So we got rid of the fractions by multiplying each term by 4. That's the green. Then these are just some questions we wanted to answer for students about 11.1 and 11.2. So, and then we have standard form, and then we have meaning you need everything equals to 0. And then the coefficient of each one of those is what A, B, and C are, including the sign. So then we have the quadratic formula that you will be given even on the test and on the final. And all you have to do is plug stuff in. And then I'm going to run out of room, and they say the opposite of B or negative B, but here, if you plug this in, I'm just going to use every sign from the formula, and then I'm going to make replace all the alphabetical items. So negative 12 plus or minus square root. Folks, negative 12 quantity squared, right? That whole B is squared. That B happens to be a negative. Minus 4 times A times C. All over to A. And you simplify. And like I said, I hope I don't run out of room. Negative, negative is positive. Plus or minus stays. And then that thing underneath is a 144 minus 48. And I think I worked this yesterday. It looks really familiar. It's probably I sent it to you, but I'm happy to go over it here. And then,
you probably did. I've had a crazy weekend.
And it's always easier if I explain it, you know, like this. So then you go from there and you simplify, and then you get a 12 plus or minus. 144 minus 48, so minus 44 is 100, so 92. 96. Help! I think it's a 96.
It is a 96.
Thank you. Yeah. So then we go from there. Now we need to take that 96 and simplify it. Square root of 96. I'm going to do this over here because I'm a little bit limited on space. Square
now
root
you
of
can
96.
plug this. You can plug that in the calculator, right?
Totally. You just plug it in twice. You would say open parentheses 12 plus square root of 96 close parentheses all divided by 2. Enter.
Okay.
Then you have to hope your calculator shoots out something simplified with either a radical or regular number, because if you get a decimal, it's not going to take it. I don't like decimals, and neither does my math lab. Unless they tell you to put a decimal around it, like the one where you guys had the how many seconds does it fall, you take for that thing to hit the ground if it falls off the building. You had to say, well, I mean, nobody would be able to read this stuff and say that and understand how many seconds that is. That's when you use a decimal approximation and say, oh, 7.24 seconds roughly, or whatever, you know, approximately. So here, since I don't have a calculator handy, or I do, but I don't want to use it, I'm going to go ahead and do my thing here. And 96 is divisible by 2. 2 times 48. And then we have, this is where we can argue. You know, folks, I understand 48 is 2 times 24, and 24 is 2 times 12, and 12 is 2 times 6, and etc. It would really help you here to say 48 is 3 times 16. Only, excuse me, because 16 is a 4 squared. You see what I'm saying?
Gotcha, yeah.
So you can do this the hard way with all the little 2's and pull the 2's out and then multiply them, or you can just say, whoops, where's my pen? The square root of, there's a 2, there's a 4 squared, and there's a 3. And, you know, you can do 2 and 2 and 2 square them both. It doesn't matter, but what comes out is the 4, and what stays under is the 6. So if you fiddle with this, now my calculator, this one here, camera.
That's the same one I've got.
Yeah, if I plug in square root of 96 and I hit enter, I get a decimal, but then you hit that little button right above the enter. Oh, where'd it go? I'm having a hard time with the camera. There's a little button right above the enter, this piece here.
Okay.
And that if you hit that button, it'll bring it back to a decimal number. Not decimal, a radical number, if it's radical, and it'll simplify it for you. It did it for you?
So if I put,
Yeah.
yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, see how it did a 4 square root of 6? Perfect. It did that for you, you see? So that's what I'm getting, and that's just that piece. You see 4 square root of 6. Hi, Amanda.
Uh-huh.
I went ahead and hit record for you. We started one that Kendra had asked about, and we will get your 2, and then we'll be done with this. So don't worry about catching up here, okay? Because I will share this video. Yeah, you already had chocolate milk today, honey. You can have milk in a few minutes. Excuse me. Okay, so x equals, now here's where you make that decision. Do you factor out a 2 out of the top? But the problem is that they both have a 4 as well. So me personally, if I factor and cancel, I want to pull the 4, and that's going to actually cause me more problems later. So let's do the thing where most of you like the splitting up better. This is from chapter 5, where you say I have a numerator denominator, but the denominator is a monomial. So I'm going to split these pieces up right here, and then you can simplify them better. So x is cancel, cancel 6, plus minus, cancel, cancel 2 square root of 6. The 4 and the 2 here cancel into, right? 2 times 2, cancel, cancel. 2 times 6, cancel, cancel. And that's how this happens. And then this is your final answer. You have 2 answers. One is 6 plus 2 square root of 6, and one is 6 minus 2 square root of 6. Yeah?
Yeah, that makes a lot more sense.
Okay, so, and then the hard part is always when you get to this point, I think that's where, Amanda, right? You had some questions when you get to this point, and then you have to clean it up. So anyway, first step is get rid of the fraction. Second step is to listing the A, B, C. Then you plug it into the formula, and then you, the simplifying at the end. So let's do the other 2 that Amanda had asked about. And then we will pause this or stop this recording, and then I'll make a recording over chapter 9. I just pulled up the exam 1 review so we can work with those a little bit, and that way they'll be different than tomorrow when we want to review for the final, because, yeah. Okay, I'm going to clear these drawings. And in between, I may have to pause for a second and get my child something to eat and something to drink, but he did have breakfast. Then we took a walk, because I said, we got to go for a walk before the weather hits. And otherwise, he'll sit on the couch all day. That's not good. Okay, use the quadratic formula to solve the equation. So first of all, some of you will say, okay, let's clear the fractions first. Some of you will say, let's make everything equal to 0 because it's quadratic formula, and then clear the fractions. Do we care? We don't care. So let's clear the fractions first, okay? And that's, again, you put the LCD into each numerator. This is technically over 1. So what's the LCD between 3, 1, and 6? 6. So you would take a 6, put it in the numerator. 6 and 6. And then you get 6 times a third. 6 over 3 is 2, yes? And then I would go ahead and move it around at the same time, but I don't want to confuse things. So we're just going to take this nice and slow. 6 times y is 6y. And then plus 1, 6 times 6, 6 over 6 is 1. You see what I'm saying? Or the 6's cancel. How's that going? We're doing okay? And then you want standard form. You see, and then I want to go ahead and talk about this for a second. Well, let's go ahead and move this over. Everybody okay that I'm going to add 6y to both sides to make it disappear from here? And I subtract 1 from both sides to make it disappear from here. So in quadratic formula, this method, I have to create this, right? If this wanted me to use completing the square, look at the next one. It has a completing the square method. You see what I'm saying? You can do any problem with either of these methods. But if it says complete the square, I would not move that constant over with it. I would leave that constant on that side. You see what I'm saying? And then I also, if you're completing the square, you can't have your A has to be 1, meaning you could not start with a 3. You see, so there's a difference. But that's the only difference. I mean, then you can work them. You just have to use a different method. Something that really aggravated me, I was grading the module 15 discussion, and I do it as I can. So last week, some of you submit early, and then I get in there and I go ahead and say, hey, watch this, and I give you partial credit, and then you have until the due date to finish it, and you get pretty much full credit if you work on it, because that's the whole idea, is that you learn. And then I had people wait till last night, of course, that's normal. And then they submit it, and then they use the quadratic formula when it's clearly said to use completing the square. And they got 1 out of 10 points. I don't care if they were right. And now today they're going to hate me. And I'm like, I wanted you to learn a method. I need for you to learn a method, because if not, you're going to hurt yourself in the next course. You know, they want you to complete the square because you have to graph and do all kinds of crazy stuff. And if you can't complete the square, you're toast. And then they'll blame it on me because I didn't teach it. You know, so I'm enforcing it. Anyway, it's a struggle. Where
The struggle's real.
So I got up at 3:30 and graded because I want to do some of it while my son sleeps, so I can still be a mother when he's, you know, we're all at home with our kids and have to deal with stuff. And anyway, so I was getting pretty aggravated before he ever got up. But then I switched gears, said, okay, it's child time now. We're not going to worry about this. Okay, so A is 2, B is 6, C is -1. And then we plug it into the quadratic formula. X is, and then I don't want to write the formula down again. Hopefully you have it in front of you somewhere, but it's -b, or the opposite of b. B is simply 6 plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac. Yes? And then Amanda, stop me if I'm wrong, or if you see something and you're not sure what I'm talking about. And then the denominator is 2a, so 2 times 2.
I actually had like the writing the formula out. I was remembering the formula there.
Okay.
It was just late.
Then usually the problem is when we start simplifying, because it looks a little weird, or we don't know if we want to factor and cancel, or if we want to split them. So then you have x is -6 plus or minus square root of, and maybe we can do some of this in our head. You guys are allowed to calculate. 6 squared is 36. Negative, okay, I'll write it down. It's 36. Negative is positive. 4 times 2 is 8. Yes? 36 and 8 is 44. And this is, I think you probably got most of it right all the way to the end. Watch this. This is now going to get interesting. Square root of 44. Square root of 4 is 2 squared times 11, yes? 2 comes out, 11 stays under. All over, still 4. So I'm going to hold off a second. Amanda, you either froze or you're working. Your screen might be frozen.
I was working.
Okay, I think your screen is frozen, but that's okay.
Probably.
And then here you make the decision, do I want to factor and cancel? So in the numerator, you could say, hey, they both have a 2, you pull it forward, and then the bottom is a 4, is a 2 times 2, and you would cancel upstairs, downstairs. But really, most of the students do better if they just say, oh, each one of the items, these are 2 terms in the numerator, are divided by 4. So you could write it like this. And some people go straight to final answer. I don't care. You know, it depends on your comfort level. Negative 6/4 is negative. 6 divided by 2 is 3 halves. Okay. Plus or minus square root of 11 over 2. And then we'll talk about this for a second. If you entered this into the computer and the computer kicked it out, let's say it's a test or a quiz or something, email me because I will give you full points. The thing is that it would want it separate if it had an I with it. So if this were a complex number, you would have the real part and you would have the imaginary piece. But in this case, it isn't. It doesn't have an I, so you would, the computer prefers it if you say, oh, that is negative 3 plus or minus square root of 11 all over 2, you see? These are 2 answers, and it writes them together, the 2 pieces. And Amanda kind of disappeared, so I don't know if she's having technical issues. So we'll just wait a second.
Sure I am.
You okay?
I may have to switch to my. Yeah, I may have to switch to my. We'll see how many times it kicks me out.
Okay. So if
My
nothing
service is
else,
always
I will
crappy.
send the recording. You know, it's not a problem for me. So let's do the last one, and then we'll stop the recording and start a new recording starting on chapter 9. That one's really good if you're here, if you weren't comfortable with it before, because it's not bad. Oh, Amanda got kicked out again. This is unfortunate because this is what she kind of wants. So, but she'll be back.
Yeah.
There she is. So if you, it's not a problem, right? We're recording it. We will make sure you have access to this. Okay, so this time it says complete the square. So we could also do this one with A, B, C with the quadratic formula, but we want to follow directions because we want full points. Okay, so complete the square. You really need x squared plus bx blank equals c blank. And what I mean by that is your coefficient, this has to be a has to be 1 for completing the square. And then you have to get rid of the constant on the right, on the left, but this is already there, you see? So in this case, we could write it like this, blank, blank. The problem is we don't yet have a coefficient here that's a 1, because what you're creating is a perfect square trinomial that factors into something like this, blah, blah square. And you would never, if you FOIL that, get a 3x squared. It's impossible, right? Unless it's a square root of 3 times square root of 3, and we're not doing that. So we need to get rid of that 3. So what does that mean? Well, in this case, you're going to have to get rid of the 3. So you're going to divide every single piece by 3. Whatever you do here, though, you have to do here, and you have to do here. So because this is an equation, whatever you do to one term, you have to do to all. So 3/3 is x is just 1, so we have x squared. X over 3 is a third x, yes? Blank. Blank. And this is going to be a plus, and this is going to be a plus. I don't worry about that too much. We're adding whatever to that both sides so that we can create the perfect square trinomial. Now we need for this to become a perfect square trinomial. And what we do is we need to complete the square. That's the whole idea. So this is where we do that half b thing. B in this case is a third. Yes? Sorry, the Aladdin is screaming in the background. It's probably a genie. I'm so tired of Aladdin. He only gets to watch that when I'm on Zoom. Okay, so Amanda, how's this going?
Yeah, that's
You okay?
What I had so
Okay,
yeah.
so we have a half b squared, quantity squared, and that means a half times a third is 1 times 1 over 2 times 3. And a sixth squared is 1 squared over 6 squared. And we're okay with that because we're squaring that fraction. And then this outer piece goes here and there. And the inner piece goes inside my binomial that I'm squaring. So there's your x, here's your plus, and here's your 1/6 that goes on the inside because it was on the inside here at the parentheses. And then we have to deal with the right side. You know, we have to do a little side math. Are we ready, or we're okay time? I mean, we're okay speed-wise? Okay. So how do you do 10/3 plus 1/36? Excuse me. So 10/3 plus 1/36. I feel like I'm doing something wrong because of the number, but I think, no, we're right. Over 36, over 36. So if you don't have a calculator, if you have a calculator like Kendra's and mine, you do this stuff and it does it for you. There's nothing wrong with that as long as you know how to operate it. You're allowed a calculator. You're just not allowed for the stuff to do all your work for you. We want you to be able to think. 3 times 12 is 36. 10 times 12 is 120. Yes? So you get a 121 over 36 so far.
Is it working?
Excuse me. I have allergies and I've been weed whacking. And then now with this virus, allergies and coughing is not the way to go, but I'll just stay home. Nobody cares. Okay. Now we're going to use the square root property. So if something squared is a constant, then that something is plus or minus the square root of that constant. And now the beauty in this time, this is going to be a nice one. I'm going to go ahead and split them up. This is going to make me very happy because they both clean up, don't they? Square root of 121 is 11, I believe. And square root of 36 is 6. I'm going to arrow over. So now I have to move the 1/6 over. And then you can decide, am I done with it, or do I put them together, or, you know, so people get confused here. They're like, do I just do this? And then they want to enter this into the computer, and I'm like, this isn't going to work because you can do stuff to this. Now, if this had a radical piece, this would be your final answer. If this had an I piece, you would split them, and this would be your final answer with the I piece. But this doesn't have either, so you're going to get two numbers. I'm going to move you guys over. So we're all over the screen here. But what's really happening here is x is -1 plus 11 over 6, or x is, just a minute, Calvin, almost. -1 minus 11 over 6. So x is -1 plus 11 is positive 10. Or x is -1 minus 11, which is a -12. You see it? And then they both simplify. X is 10/6 is divided by 2 divided by 2. Or x is -12 divided by 6 is -2. So you have two answers. So did you get the same thing? Because I don't have a calculator. So what if I made a mistake like half an hour ago and you never said anything?
I got the same thing,
Okay.
working it out. Like
So is
you
this
did
okay,
there.
Amanda, then? I mean, you'd asked about this specific question, so I copied it in.
Yeah,
Okay,
I have that one. I've got like two. I have another one that I didn't get, like it did not get right, and on two of them, no matter what I did. And looking back at it, I worked it out like you are showing, but I did not get the correct answer.
okay, so I'm gonna work that one super fast. Yes, my child's getting frustrated. Can I pause for just a second and hook him up with a drink and a
Go ahead.
cracker?
Go ahead.
Here, have a cracker, kid. You give me that problem real quick? Amanda, can you give me the problem, please? You're muted. You muted yourself, sorry.
I thought I unmuted myself.
That's okay, I tried to unmute you. but it
2a
wouldn't let me.
squared. 2a squared plus 4a equals negative 22.
And this is complete the square or quadratic formula?
I think it's completing the square because it was two problems after
Okay,
this one.
so it's fine.
It was number
And
18.
it will work either way, but divide by 2, divide by 2, divide by 2, yes? Because you have to get rid of the coefficient on the a squared term, which is very convenient actually, since they're all divisible by 2, you don't even get a fraction. And then I'm gonna go ahead and leave a blank. Blank, yes? And then we have a half b squared. B is the coefficient of that a term. And then half times 2 is 1, and 1 squared is 1. Yes? So this goes here and here. But it also goes here. Is that how far you've gotten that far, Amanda?
Yeah, I had it completed.
Okay. So then the negative
I guess
11
I
plus
didn't.
1 is a negative 10, right?
Yeah.
And then you use the square root property. So the a plus 1 comes out. And you get a plus or minus square root of negative 10. And then you isolate the a. Now square root of negative 10 is an I square root of 10, right? This is very similar to the module 15 discussion, really. Does that clarify, or you didn't get that one, or you did?
No, because apparently when I did it, I took, and in replace of 4a, I had 2a, and I carried it down from there, and apparently I didn't have
But I mean, we did, you know, this 4 halves did make the 2, but then you have to take a half times the 2, which is that 1, you see?
Yeah, and I
It's
didn't
always-
do that. I went from
Yeah.
there and went straight into the a plus 2 squared.
Okay, so you had the 2 there, yeah, and that just wouldn't work. So, but anyway, it's the little things, you know, so you're so close, but it's the little things. So anyway, I'm gonna stop this recording, and then we're gonna start a new one with chapter 9 stuff.